Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all, and welcome back to the reading room for another edition of Proofread, where I am interviewing and challenging and just sort of talking with people that I find interesting, and I hope you do too. And joining us today is a very good friend of mine, Justin from The Wavelength. How are you, Justin?
I'm fantastic. This is my first time on the read room, and it's a nice place you got here.
It's not really. It's a bit of a shambles, to be honest with you. I can't afford a maid, quite frankly. But like, um, yeah, welcome, and I'm glad I have you on here. And the reason why I got you on, and just sort of people are asking what we're going to be discussing. There's a lot of interests that we have that intersect that I sort of think that you've got a much more in-depth view than I do. So, for instance, you teach games, and maybe you can take us through a bit about that in a second. But you moderate debates where I more participate in them, and I dabble in moderation. But you are a very experienced moderator. You've been doing it for easily over a year, as far as I know. And so I want to get your perspectives on stuff, and sort of where you're coming from, I guess, a place of authority in my view, or more authority than I am. So whereas I just play games and I just do debates. So I feel like it can be a really good perspective from people to have a different view. But what I wanted you to do first off was sort of talk about your background, where you're from, and the Wavelength. What is that about? Like, I've been on there. Well, actually, I haven't been on the Wavelength, but I
No,
have
you have
done.
technically. You've been on the Wavelength channel, and we do a show called Deep Six, and you kind of second chaired on Deep Six once so far.
Oh, I did too, didn't I? Well, I've never participated in the receiving end of Deep Six.
Yeah,
I've only
you
been
were
on
not the main
the
chair, as
guest.
we call it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, can you take us through what you're doing, and what that's all about, and your background? Like, how'd you come to be a internet, as I've been called, a micro celebrity? I think is the word for it that we're using now.
Well, yeah. Well, if we want to just start where, like, the basic stats of who I am and where I'm from. Well, my name is
Sure.
Justin, and I live in Southern Ontario in Canada, literally like moments away from Niagara Falls. So I can go see those anytime I want.
Cheap honeymoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in this region, so I was born here in this area. I lived a little bit north for a little while, but you always find your way back home at some point in time. I started out in the entertainment industry, doing like live stage performances. So I was like project manager for at the peak. I was doing stuff with Nelly Furtado, The Police, AC/DC, Great Big Sea, you name it. I was if it happened in the Toronto area, I was most likely involved with it.
So just gigs and concerts and things, or are you talking about plays as well? Like, what
No,
exactly?
that would have been a different a different animal
Right,
altogether. But
different
yeah, like
setting. Okay,
concerts.
yeah, all right.
Yeah, concerts and stuff like any big concert that took place um, in the GTA or the Greater Toronto area, as we would call it. Um, I would have been involved with it at some point in some degree,
Mm.
even if it would have just been a little bit of staging, perhaps, or some lighting. Sometimes I was the project manager of the whole event. Um, and you guys have probably heard the saying before. Um, You'll never work in this town again. I had that happen to me. So it got to a point
Okay.
where someone told me, "Screw you, buddy. You'll never work here again in this town, in this industry again." And that's exactly what happened.
Why? What'd you do?
Well, nothing. It wasn't. In
Okay.
fact, I can tell you that it all went to court. I won. I was in the right, and it doesn't matter. I'm
Right.
blacklisted. You know what I mean? Like so basically, it comes back to like, I was supposed to be project manager on an event, and I have my manager, but then there's like the head honcho, the owner, the main boss, the one who's actually hands off and never around.
Mm.
I was supposed to be project managing this big drag queen show uh,
Yeah.
with lots of lights, big production. This was not a small little thing. It was a big deal. Um, and I had it completely under control, but he showed
Mm.
up and decided that it was not under control and took over. Um, but he was working off of old information, and I was desperately trying to tell him that like they don't need this anymore, they need that. He did not like me telling him he didn't know what he was doing. So he fired me right then and there. It was
Okay.
like that, and it was like, okay. And then I sued for wrongful dismissal and for I didn't get
Yep.
any overtime pay back then in the industry, so I was able to
Um,
like also kind of like
yeah.
fight for that.
Just for our American viewers, Australia is pretty much the same. We actually, I think that in America you can fire anybody for any reason whatsoever. Like you can just get in Australia and places like Canada, reasonable countries have unfair dismissal laws, so you can't just be arbitrarily fired for any reason. They've got to show that you've been negligent or not doing the job that you're hired for. It's kind of this, but mind you, you can't just quit, without giving notice as well. It's more formalized employment kind of thing. I'm not sure that varies from the US. I think that laws vary state to state, but there's a big emphasis on workers' rights over here as well as in Canada, I think.
Yeah, we have a lot of workers' rights and things too, but the entertainment industry varies a little bit, especially in terms of like holiday pay and overtime pay and things of that sort, right? So, for example, it's not mandatory if I were to work a Christmas Day shift, it's not mandatory for my employer to pay me like double time or time and a half. It would be completely up to them if they wanted to do that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, things like that. But you know, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back as well. Like me and the big boss had never really gotten along or seen eye to eye. Meanwhile, my manager would not want to be doing any event without me there. Like there's just that didn't exist to him. I've got time slips
Mhm.
that will show that I was on site for 80 hours. Like that's how long I would be around for certain days. Um, but I'm not mad at it. I don't hate it. I'm
Yeah.
very proud of that part of my life. I was at the top of the game. Um,
Mhm.
and it was hard to have any kind of personal life, right? Because you're never home.
Yeah.
So it worked
Yeah.
out ultimately because it kind of gave me that push to be like, okay, go home and do
Yeah.
something else.
Well, it's interesting some of the things that at the time, and they still suck, like it still sucks. I've been retrenched or made redundant, sort of, not enough work for employees, so they get rid of people. Um, I've been made redundant a couple of times in my life. It happens, and looking back, you never know where your life is going, and I think that it still sucks, but at the time it feels like the end of everything, but it's not. And looking back, it's sort of, well, maybe it's good that it did happen, kind of in a weird way, and I get that feeling. So you had one avenue closed to you, and then what did you do after that? Where did
Well,
you
that
go
was
after?
actually the moment when I moved back to the Niagara region.
Yep.
Brought my girlfriend with me, and we rented a house. Um, type of person that I am, I walk into a place and I can usually leave already hired without a resume, nothing. So I kind of did that. We literally just we packed up with no reason to stay up there, came back to the Niagara region, moved into our new home. The next day, I went to the gas station. I was smoking back then. I was a smoker, not anymore, but went to this gas station to get us some cigarettes. They had a sandwich shop inside the gas station. When I went, looks like you could use some help here. I'm available. And I was put on the schedule for the following week right then and there. um,
Well, I hope you didn't smoke at the gas station. I'll tell you that
no,
right
no,
now.
no. But
That's
I
really
slowly worked my way up into like working into the gas station side, which was, I know that seems kind of weird from sandwich to gas. How do you work your way up? But a place like that makes like $10,000 a day cash. So they need people they can trust, which makes sense. And while all of that was going on, I ultimately ended up as the manager of the whole place and yada yada yada. But while all that was going on, I went back to college.
Yep. And you studied?
And I studied. I went to school every day, and
What did you
graduated with
study?
I studied video game design, and I
Mhm.
graduated with that degree on time. That's my office joke for the day. But yeah, I graduated and got my diploma. Instantly out of school, I got a job working in virtual reality, um, building an experience for Niagara Falls.
Okay. What was that
Yeah.
like?
It was weird. I
Okay.
I had a boss who basically, um, he's the type of person that believes that the more mushrooms he eats, the more creative he can be.
Oh,
Um,
dear. Yeah. Okay.
and he's got lots of money, so like it's kind of meaningless to him. So he wanted to build a virtual. He was very much into virtual reality. That was like, as far as
Mm,
he's concerned, that's the future of
that was
everything. So he
okay.
wanted to, yeah, he wanted to build a virtual reality experience.
And he's
But
now working at Meta.
no,
I'm joking. It's just
okay,
they seem
no,
really
actually,
big on virtual reality.
yeah, no, actually, with me gone, he switched gears pretty different. He went totally different direction, but um, he wanted to build a hang glider, virtual reality experience where you get to fly around the city of Niagara Falls. But he didn't just want to be like a seated normal experience. He wanted the hang glider rig. He wanted to
So
design
the
the,
movement and stuff
yeah,
kind of
so like
thing.
you lay
Yeah.
down in it and you swing and sway, and the thing should respond to player control of movement. Um, so we did that. Took us about 2 years and a lot of money and a lot of time, but we built a rough version of that experience. It was pretty close to perfect. Um, then COVID
Was
hit.
there a lot of oh, okay, yeah, no,
Yeah,
fair call. Yeah.
COVID hits. So on the side, we were making money by letting kids come and rent our VR equipment and play for a few hours, things like that.
Mhm.
But when COVID hit, that was no one's coming in to put VR masks that some other guy had worn
No,
before. Like that was just close the
no.
doors.
Yeah.
And my old school called saying that their teacher had developed some kind of condition. She couldn't carry on, and they were desperate for an instructor. And my instructor recommended me.
Mhm.
Um, so I went, yeah, sure. And because of
Excellent.
COVID, everything went work from home,
Mhm.
and that's where I am and have been ever since,
Did you
teaching the same course I took.
right. Did you have to do any dip ed or anything like diploma of education or anything like that, or was it just, dive right in?
No, because it's a college level course,
Mhm.
experience is enough, right? So I've got several years experience working in that
Yep.
VR experience and things of that stuff. So, um, yeah, you don't need any teaching degree per se, if you've got like real world work experience on the topic that you're teaching. For instance, my cousin, who's also a college teacher, um, is a mechanic. So he doesn't have
Mm.
a degree in how to teach, but he owns his own garage and he's been fixing cars for 15 years. So that
Yep.
qualifies him to teach certain aspects
Yeah, fair
of
enough.
car repair.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so how did you get from teaching, sort of v well, presumably video game design into the debate sphere on YouTube? How did that come about?
Well, where it overlaps is actually when I was in school, still in school, someone had
Mm.
mentioned that there is people in the world who still think the earth is flat.
Oh,
And I thought they
okay.
were joking. I'm like, "Come on." And they're like, "No, there was just a convention in Toronto with like 2,000 people came to talk about flat earth." And I went, "Come on." So I Googled it and I discovered this wasn't just a small, like, it wasn't just 3
No,
or 4 people
no.
or a little coffee table group of flat earth believers.
Mhm.
This was a thing, and I
Um,
found it hilarious.
I would probably call it a small but significant chunk of the human species.
Yeah. It's more than a small number anyways. Like, it's not just
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Large
while
enough
I
for a
was
convention, yeah.
yeah. So, in school, it's all project work. So, I basically give an assignment at the start of the month, and it's like, "We'll see you in 30 days with your handed in assignment," kinda situation, right? And you go to
Right,
school,
right.
you go to class every day. So, while you're
Yep.
working away and you're hammering away at putting some game together, I'm watching people like Mark Sargent and whatever talk about flat Earth, and I'm just dumbfounded that this is a thing.
You and me both.
Yeah,
You and me both. Like, I get you, I hear you.
yeah,
It and part of it is that and something I do wanna cover is there's sort of a train wreck element to it. It's terrible, but you can't look away. It's sort of mesmerizing just how, you watch the train cars pile up. And I want to talk about that later, but sorry, go on.
well, if we go through it, if I fast forward a little bit, that leads
Yeah.
to one thing leading to another. So there's a guy named Simon Dan who's doing these flat Earth debunk videos. Has like 5,000 subscribers. I sub.
Mm.
I've been a subscriber of his since way back then, and I'm just
Yeah.
watching him grow and grow and grow. And I can't every week I'm watching a new flat Earth debunked video from him, and his buddy Conspiracy Cats, and then later
Yep.
on in history, we get to see like Peaky Blinder and a whole bunch of other people. Then he starts a podcast, and from that podcast, one of his guests was Matt Dillahunty.
Mhm.
So I get to see Simon Dan on a podcast interviewing Matt Dillahunty. I'm like, this guy's awesome.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
like, this is great. And he's like, yeah, you can come see me, Atheist Experience, whatever. So now I was like every Sunday, I'm literally I had a timer on, like make sure I don't miss an episode of the Atheist Experience, and I was listening to Matt Dillahunty, Atheist Experience, and then you go from there to Modern Day Debate, where I'm now watching that, and I see Ryan moderating these debates. I see James, who's like extra charismatic. I start to miss the stage a little bit, right? I'm an
Yeah.
entertainment guy. I'm more comfortable in front of 10,000 people than I am a room of 10 people. Um, so I emailed James and said, "Hey, I think I could moderate." And he
Mhm.
went, "I'm open to that." And we met for a half an hour one day. Next thing you know, I was moderating debates on Modern Day Debate. So just
Yeah.
classic me. I
Mhm.
inquire and it just happens.
Yeah, and I do wanna talk about debates and stuff and sort of get your perspective, but so, what do you enjoy more? Do you enjoy the moderation more or the video game design? Like, where is your I mean, they might be equal, but where is your real passion? Like, what do you really get passionate about these things?
It's gotta be video games. If I had to give
Mhm.
one up for the other, I'd probably give up and it wouldn't even be the moderating or the debates that I'd be giving up. Um,
Yeah.
it's the internet, it's the present, it's the people who are right now watching us, in the chat. I run off of that. It fuels me, it excites me, it makes me wanna do more. Um,
Okay. So is that
it
sort of
doesn't
a
even have to be debates. I just wanna
is it
be
is it a passion for the entertainment or is it a
yeah,
passion for yeah,
absolutely.
okay. I don't know. I mean, I run on different. I enjoy ideas and thinking about ideas. I really enjoy the not that Sorry, chat. You're not important to me. No, I'm joking. I do care about people out there, but it's more that I get to engage with people and they get me thinking and I get different ideas and different perspectives on things, and that's what I really love. And that's okay. Totally good. Um, when you look at video games, um, do you have a sort of perspective on them about whether they are good for society, bad for society? Can they be good and bad? How are we looking at them as part of? Because we look at movies and certain stuff as part of an artistic culture of our society, but we generally don't, or most people don't look at video games in the same way. Do you see them as an artistic endeavor, or is it just entertainment?
Oh, it's definitely artistic. there's no brainer there. Just problem solving, how to get certain things to work out. As far back as like the original Super Mario Brothers, coding Super
Right.
Mario to jump in the pattern that he jumps changed the industry of computer science in general, never mind just video games. How graphics are displayed, they had to reinvent how that happens in order for that little avatar, that little sprite to move and function the way they wanted that to function. So there's definitely art, even in as much as if you can consider math art, right? Like figuring out the way to calculate um, the code in order for it to do the thing you want it to do. That alone is brilliant because you can code something 18 different ways to get the same result, but the most efficient way, that's where the art comes in.
Well,
Um,
that's to do with the coding and stuff, but really I'm more so, when I'm talking about art, I'm really talking about a, piece that is offered to the, you know, society in general that says something about that society or evokes emotions in that society. So rather than the art of like, don't get me wrong, I really understand there's art in coding, like
mhm.
absolutely understand that because there's certain code that you look at that you go, wow, that is elegant, or that is so sloppy, I cannot believe that thing actually exists, and not only that, but functions in some way. Like I
Yeah,
don't
that's the classic
understand.
coding meme too, right? The "Why doesn't this work? Why doesn't this work?" But then when it does work, it's, "Why does this work?" Like, it's
Right, right. But really, I'm talking about sort of the video games in our society for people that aren't coding them. Like really, um, can video games be an artistic form?
yeah, absolutely. There's an indie scene of video games even right now, where the way these games are presented is absolutely just pure art. Um, they're almost not even video game as much as interactive experiences, um, which is what we used to call, like, our VR experience, the Niagara Falls things, for example, right? A video game has to have, like, a win condition, a loss condition, things of that sort, but an experience can just be something that you go into, you turn on, and you experience it, but there is no way to actually win or lose, and there's tons of that stuff out there where it's all about, different colors, or even just doing, like, um, combat to the beat of stuff. Trying to think of an example, but the name escapes me right now, but if I were to look it up, I'd be able to find it. But yeah, there's games that are almost pure art. And if we come a little bit back to the mainstream of like AAA games, there's still art
Okay.
there as well, for sure. There's
Yeah,
different
I
levels of
think
art.
so. AAA usually refers to the big companies kind of thing. Just for people who aren't familiar with the culture of gaming out there, the really big companies are called the AAA games that have had lots of money thrown into them, lots of development time. Um, Something like Battlefield or Call of Duty Modern Warfare or something like that would be a
The
AAA game by a big
Yeah,
company.
the big one coming next year would be the Grand Theft Auto 6, for
Right,
instance.
right. That would be a AAA game.
Yeah.
Um, so, and speaking of that, the sort of AAA games, do you? What are your thoughts about the AAA companies? I know that EA, Electronic Arts, was voted a few years ago, a couple of years in a row, as the worst company in America. And so, what are your thoughts on the big companies that may be taking over this sphere? That they really um, can do some harm in the industry. Apparently, people say because they have voted them terrible companies.
Well, there's always gonna be terrible companies in general. It doesn't just have to be video games. Over COVID, a lot of the companies hired way too many people. So right now they're getting a lot of kickback because they're laying off a whole lot of people now. You know, COVID's over, game sales have dropped a little bit, because when COVID hit, people who weren't playing video games at all before were now
Yeah.
suddenly investing in video games. I'll never forget the backlash from people standing in line at their local video game store to pick up the newest version of Animal Crossing for their Nintendo
Mm,
Switches, even though we were
yeah.
like dead in the middle of a pandemic. Um,
Mm,
so I think large companies are almost always going to be vilified in some way, shape, or form, regardless if it's a video game company, a car company, um, what have you. But yeah, EA is pretty rough. Even here we have an EA in Canada as well.
right.
Yeah, I would not even recommend to any of my students to go over there and um, recommend working for
Well,
them.
I somewhat agree with you that companies sort of are vilified to a degree, but um, I think there's some standouts in industries. Like when we're talking companies that have done irreparable harm, we're talking about places like Monsanto. You know, you can't sit there and say, "Hey, Monsanto's just vilified." You know, they came out with DDT. They came out with some of the worst toxins that are in our environment. Like, I don't know how you can sort of say, "Well, that's just being vilified." I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm saying, you know, that company has problems above and beyond vilification for being a company that's made a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, companies like EA, they just don't have any kind of like proper work home balance. I think that's their biggest problem. If you go work with EA, um, you can expect to be there for like 2 days straight before you'll even get to go home. Um,
Yeah,
and they encourage that. They're the classic, like, everyone else gets to work a half an hour early. Why weren't you here? And it's like, hey man, I don't start till
right,
9. Get off my back.
right.
Um, but even the smaller companies too, like the smaller studios, they have those similar problems as well, but for different reasons because now they're trying to compete. They want to get in, so they have to work twice as hard with half as much money and half as much resources to get their game noticed and get their game out there as well. So, um, def I guess you could say it's kind of like being in the restaurant business. You really just have to like what you do, if you're gonna do it. Um, yeah, EA is bad. Blizzard had a problem before they got bought by Microsoft as well, where their CEO was getting like um, some sexual harassment charges against them.
Right.
Um,
Well, yeah, and I get. Look, the leadership of a company can certainly dictate a lot of what that company is like, but I wouldn't hold an entire company responsible for something like that of their CEO.
mhm,
Um, Having said that, I think that the problems do sort of roll downhill when it comes to that kind of, like, if there is a culture of that within a company, I think that's definitely a problem. Because if the CEO is doing it, you're probably, there's probably a lot of people in high up leadership doing it. So I think that is, really problematic. But I wouldn't say, what has that got to do with the average person, coding a game?
yeah. There's a shift
Where
coming. There's there's something big that's happening in the next, like, couple of years. Something's gonna happen, and it's gonna be a big deal. So a lot of the big game companies, and they kind of set the pace, right? They decide what games are worth and how much money to
Mhm.
put into them and how much they think the games will sell for, blah blah blah. They desperately want to go to a pay as a service model. All of these big companies, they
And I
just
was going there, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they want to be like the Netflix and the Spotify's. In fact, it's been said by some CEO now, I forget, it might have been the Capcom guy, I forget now, that it's interesting how quickly and easily everyone accepted the idea of a Netflix and a Hulu and a Disney Plus and a Spotify's, but yet when it came to video games, all us video game people went, "No, no, no. I'm not gonna pay you money every month just to play the game I own." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um,
Yeah, and they're starting to do it with, Xbox passes and things like that, you have access to a certain amount of games for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
It makes me worry that we're headed towards sort of like the Netflix streaming service kind of instead of
I think it's gonna happen one way or another. Well, I don't know if the streaming of the games is necessarily gonna be the path. So if anybody who's wondering, there's kind of 2 ways we can end up in a world of gaming. We could end up with the Xbox Pass right now is actually not bad. It's a reasonable price. You download the game to your machine or whatever, and you play it. You can also stream it if you want. They're in the beta right now with streaming.
well, yeah, that's what I meant, or just have like
Yeah,
paying for monthly access to a
yeah.
game. Um,
Streaming's tough. Streaming's tough, and Google will tell you it's tough because they tried it and they failed miserably with Stadia. Um,
right. Well, I guess my problem will be the same problem that I've got with movie services like Netflix. It's sort of in order to access everything that you want, you've got to be subscribed to nearly all of them. It's sort of, you can't just pick one thing from this one. You
yeah,
can't selectively go, okay, well, I want this movie. I don't want anything to do with, comedians on Netflix, unless it's this person and this person, because there's so much trash on there. There's so much like we talk about. You'll be familiar with the term shovelware.
yes,
Um, now, for those people out there, shovelware is basically software or a game that is really badly made. It's a really terrible game. It's just been put out to try and deceive people into buying it, and it's very, very bad, incomplete, and it's been rushed out to try and just make whichever dodgy company has made it some extra bucks to try and pull in some money.
yeah, and then
um
sometimes they're even blatant reskins of the same game, and you can end up
yes.
buying, like, the exact same game 4 times with different titles, and if you go play them, like, even the levels are identical, just one's
Yeah.
blue and one's red. It's really strange.
So what I like, and my platform of preference is Steam, is that refund rule for Steam. You can
Mhm.
get a refund if you even just for not liking it, just playing
Yep.
it for less than 2 hours. You don't like it, you can get all your money back.
Yeah,
Because
I
too many
agree.
times you open something, you go, "Oh, this is absolute crap," but what am I going to do about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna end up there one way or another. Um, yeah, it is a little annoying. It would suck if I had to, like, pay for, an EA account and an Ubisoft account just to
Right,
cover myself for the games that I wanna play.
right.
Um, Also, it probably would bother me a little bit if they were like, "Yeah, this game you've been playing, whether you're finished or not, it's gonna be gone in a month." That would be a little bit, frustrating. But I think it's gonna go there one way or another, and the only reason why I think that it's kind of we're on the downhill towards that now, is because Ubisoft recently got on board, and they were like, "Yeah, we need to get there." Um, and the reason why that's a big deal is because, like, Ubisoft publishes, like, 180 titles a year. Like, if any company is gonna be able to do it, it might be
Mm.
Ubisoft that might get it going first. I don't know if we're gonna be
Well,
streaming your games yet necessarily though, but
yeah, I don't have a particularly, large, I don't have a particularly huge, um, view of Ubisoft. I think they've done some pretty dodgy stuff over the years. I'm not that big a fan, to be honest with you, but,
well, I'm not a huge
um
Ubisoft fan either, but, I mean, their titles and their sales kinda speak for themselves. Every time you see a new Family Feud game and you're wondering who made that, it was Ubisoft.
right,
Um,
right.
One of their biggest sellers are the dancing games, like the Just Dance games.
Yes.
Um, like and it's funny because they literally just need to buy a bunch of new music every year
Mhm.
and sell the same game for $40 more, right? So
Right, and then you get EA's, FIFA soccer that they've got to deal with, and it's almost like there's minor changes, and you can see the evolution of it. I will grant that, but it is, almost exactly the
actually,
same
when it
game
comes to
year after
the sports games, I think it's perfect. I think they should. I think EA should totally just charge people $19, $20 a month to access their sport game and never worry about it again, frankly. Because then it might
Yeah.
even make a little more sense. You just have the constant updated rosters and just have the game flow. Just have it be never ending.
So what happens to the indie developer who can't get on one of these platforms? What happens to them?
Um, they can. I'm sure there'll be marketplaces still available to them.
Like good
In
or
fact,
bad or
yeah,
something
like
like
Steam. I think Steam's. If anything, Steam will just expand into a streaming to a streaming service. But I'm sure that our libraries will remain intact for as long as they can, anyways. Right? Like those libraries on Steam will eventually games will start getting taken off of them. I've had a couple of games already. I've gotten emails of like this game's going to be taken off here.
really?
Um,
I
yeah,
don't think I've gotten that before.
depends on the
Uh,
game you have and whether or not the company
well,
still
that's true.
exists. And
I certainly have had games on there that are basically, abandoned, and that's another term for people unfamiliar with the culture is abandonware, and I wanna cover that one as well, where they
yeah,
basically sort of come out with a game, they promise all of these things, and then it sort of, just doesn't happen.
there'll always be a marketplace for indie developers. There's no doubt. There's a big
Yeah,
market there.
yeah, I guess that my point of contention is there's some very old games that I can see myself in 10 years going back to. For instance, something like Skyrim, for instance, kind of thing. I
Yeah,
don't think that's ever going to be a game that I won't boot up at some point and sort of play again. Or like I just booted up, like reinstalled Fallout 4 because the series came out. They did an update and stuff, and it would irk me a lot if I went, well, what platform is that on? Where do I have to get it from? And then have to subscribe to something because I want to get into nostalgia for an
yeah.
afternoon kind of thing. And it would be like, trying to find where a movie is streamed.
I think
Um,
for some games, like your Fallout games, I think you'll be spoiled for choice. So I think you'll be able to choose like, oh, do I go pay for an Epic account or do I go pay for a Sony account? I think those kind of some of those games you're going to be spoiled for choice. What's going to be more interesting is what's going to happen to the consoles because I think we might be looking at the twilight years of home consoles,
you really you
except for
think that?
Nintendo because they keep doing something different.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I didn't think that the users of consoles was falling that much, to be honest with you.
Well, put it this way: my wife is downstairs right now playing The Walking Dead on our TV without a console.
Right.
Um, so, and consoles are just getting more and more closer to computers. So, at what point does the console just become pointless? It's gonna happen. I think it's
Okay.
gotta happen. I think the only one who's got a chance to maintain a home console a little bit longer than everyone else is going to be Nintendo because they keep doing things to keep hard control over their games and how they present their games, right? They're always trying to reinvent things like with the Wii, and now we've got the Switch. But even then, I think even Nintendo is eventually going to go, why do we waste all this money on developing consoles when we could just have a Nintendo service and let people download it to their mobile phones and to their TVs and play it that way?
Okay.
Um,
Sounds yeah, I'm not sure if I'm on board with that, but yeah, I suppose if enough people like it, that's the way it's gonna go.
Sony
I
doesn't even
really
make money on their consoles. Like when Sony makes a console, it's like, can we just break even on this thing? By the time they do research and development into their consoles, they don't even hardly even make money on the consoles. That's why it's so important for the games to be there and good and the console exclusives to matter.
yeah, but what was I going to say? There was some controversy recently over a game that suddenly became incredibly popular, Helldivers 2, and PlayStation Network. They basically made it so you had to be signed up to the PlayStation Network, the subscription service, in order to play it, basically. And then when these countries ruled that you can't demand somebody have a subscription service for a game that they bought outright, they just stopped selling it in those countries.
Yeah, it's Sony is a funny one, and it's all data mining, right? They just want your information. That's all. At the end of the day, that's what they're really asking for. They want to know who you are, what's your email address, so we can sell you more stuff. So if they can get that through a game, and all you got to do is sign up so that you can play this game, then they're gonna try to do that. Um, I hate it. I hate it, but I mean, if that's the way it's got to go. Luckily, if you're talking about the Helldivers 2 incident, luckily Sony's wised up and went, okay, okay, we've heard you. Forget it. We take it back.
But have they?
Yeah, they walked it right back. It's not
Okay.
required for Helldivers 2, anyways. It's not for those countries where they didn't have access to Sony. It's not a problem anymore. They've totally walked that back.
Right, which is understandable because of the incredible amount of backlash.
Oh my god, it was insane. Yeah.
It seems to me that the gaming industry in particular is vulnerable, or it really does respond to sort of backlash and sort of the gamers in particular seem to be able to cancel companies and make changes through sheer force of numbers, basically.
That would be the exact reason why we're not already like hip deep in the games as a service industry. Gamers have been pushing back so hard on, I want to buy and own my games.
Right.
I don't want to borrow or rent my games. I want to own the games. But like I said, I think we're already in the downhill slope of that's all going to happen. It's gotta, it makes sense. Even though I agree with the gamers, which is why I collect video games. Like this whole room I'm in is filled with video games, for as far back as my childhood to some of the most modern games. Because when the day comes when I can't go to a video game store and buy the game, or even just buy it on Steam,
Right.
or if I want to load up Skyrim again, I'll load up Skyrim.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that really worries me is sort of predatory
Monetization.
Thank you. Of things like loot boxes, which, going back to a company like EA, loot boxes aimed at children, who sort of, it's been marked in Europe as gambling now, which it 100% is.
Absolutely.
Like the sort of predatory way that they've targeted people that don't know the addictiveness of gambling and market it as well. It's just something fun. It really does concern me. Mobile games in particular are sort of geared towards this, and do we need a lot more oversight when it comes to the mechanics of monetization in these games and in these things, especially when they're being offered towards children?
Yes, absolutely. So we have to try to look at both sides of it, right? The company itself, they need a way to have a constant influx of cash in order to maintain servers, because most of the time these games with the loot boxes and stuff have some online element, and that requires constant upkeep and servers and stuff. Okay, fair enough. We accept that. We get it. But
Yeah,
they're like, how are we going to do that? And I think like we're in regards to EA, for example, they decide, hey, we're going to do locked content. So you buy a game and
yes,
you're expected to have a certain amount of game with the purchase, the blanket premium price that you pay for that game, you're expecting to have a certain level of open stuff already unlocked for you for the game. They decided to lock the rest of their game behind loot boxes, which isn't right. It's like I already paid for the game, and now I got to pay a random amount to get the rest of the game. Normally, when you
Right.
unlock a game, it's through playing for a few hours, completing a secret mission, defeating a certain
Sure.
enemy. You unlock a thing, you're rewarded. Now
Mhm.
EA screwed up by deciding we're going to reward you by spending money. We're going to lock
Well, you're
some of your
talking
game behind that.
well, you're talking about sort of, um, progress, and we have a number of models. You're talking about progress through either, achieving objectives in the game or, um but just being that good at the game, skill or objective-based, achievements, unlocking the content. Um, um, it seems indicative of our modern society that we're saying, "Hey, but you can progress as far as somebody working hard by just having money."
Yeah, so that's like sounds to me like you're describing pay to win now, which is slightly different. That's the
Yeah,
pay to
or
win stuff is
progress.
yeah,
So
that stuff
just
is
just for people who might not be familiar with gaming terms, pay to win is basically where you put lots of money in to buy certain advantages that allow you to succeed in games, especially multiplayer games. Um, and pay to progress is where it is more the model that we're talking about, where you have content locked behind paywalls, as they're called, um, uh, uh, imaginary obstacles that you can pay to just remove instead of actually doing something in game to remove them.
yeah, which isn't ideal either. It almost sounded to me like they were looking at, games like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! And things like that and thinking, if they can sell packs of cards, which for some kids, that's almost just as much as gambling as well, right? When the new set of Pokemon cards come out, and they want that one Pokemon, they're out there spending every dollar of their allowance, desperately trying to hit that jackpot. So the there's already we've already gone a step too far, into that whole
Right.
thing. And there's these other toys too that you can buy as well. They're mystery toys that they sell in Walmarts and things like that that you can buy that are like, you don't know what you're gonna get. You spend $5 on this egg and you open it up and it could be something you already have. And in an attempt to try to collect them all, you waste a lot of money. Um, I've seen these other things too now that are like toys,
Mhm.
where you get to do mining. You get to like do a little pickaxe on an actual rock, and there's like a 1 in 100 chance that there'll be an actual real diamond inside it or something.
Well, I think that monetization for games has been done successfully. I think the most notable example is Digital Extremes, which is actually a Canadian company. They're based in London, Canada, and they did Warframe, which was probably one of the most emblematic free-to-play games ever. And I've got to admit, I did thousands of hours in that game, and you never bought something from them that you didn't know what you were getting,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
you would buy something from the shop, and a lot of it is run by an a their premium currency. You can actually, like, because people are looking for certain bits and pieces, if you're willing to farm those bits and pieces, you can sell it for their like their premium currency. And I have done that plenty of times, made in premium currency that ordinarily you have to pay for
mhm.
by playing the game. So I think that is a really good example of how you would monetize a free to play.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with that
it's
at all?
doable. Yeah, so one of the things that I teach my students, for example, there is a part of teaching them the monetization. You have to create value, uh, and one way that you can create value is with that premium currency. So you start with that premium currency and you're going to say that like you can buy 500 gems for $10. Okay, cool. So now we've set a baseline of 500 gem costs $10. Well, now if you can sell 1,000 gems for So what did I say? 500 gems for $10? Is that what I said?
Yeah.
So if you can sell 1,000 gems for $15, you've now created value. You're saying that these gems here are $5 cheaper for twice as many.
Mhm.
And then with Warframe, for example, where it's possible for you to collect things to earn some of that premium currency, even those things you're collecting now, the time you're putting into it has great value now. It's still a value they created, right?
Well,
But
yeah.
the value is fair. I'm not saying that the value isn't justified. The evaluation might be accurate. That might be the evaluation they need to put on that premium currency to maintain their game and servers, right? Like, it's not an arbitrary number. They're just like, how much can we gouge people for? It's what do we need to stay in business, right?
Right, but I think there are companies out there going, "How much can we get away with?" How much can we
Oh, for
gouge
sure.
people?
Can we get how well, what they're doing is they're trying to figure out how to create more value. So,
Right,
for example, the Battlefield 2, the EA Star Wars thing with the whole Darth Vader locked behind a
right,
loot
right.
box system. EA was like, well, how do we create value? Well, Darth Vader would be very valuable. And if we put
Right,
him in a
right.
loot box people have to pay for, they'll go
Mhm.
crazy for it. Well, that blew up
Oh,
in their
yeah,
face.
and they did, yeah.
Yeah, and they walked that back and went, that was bad.
Mhm.
Right? Someone in your
Insanely
chat
bad.
just mentioned League of
But
Legends. I played League of
yeah,
Legends for, like, 10 years, and, yeah, I think they're doing it great too. You can't earn their premium currency through gameplay, but you
no.
can still get skins and all kinds of fun things, without getting any advantage, right? It just
It's
allows you to
cosmetic.
express yourself and be a little unique.
Yeah, and their champions, you can earn the money to unlock their champions, but they're still locked. So we're talking about a pay to advance system, really.
No, you
Their
can unlock their
champions,
champions just from playing, though.
yes, yeah. So it's pay to advance. So basically, if you want to sit down and put an amount of time in it, I'm not so harsh on the pay to advance. That it doesn't really worry
Um
me that much.
There's also
It's more
arguably an advantage to not unlocking all of the characters as well, because there's game modes where the character selection is random, and the randomness is based on the characters you have in your stable. So, like, my League of Legends account, I have every single character, and if I go into a random game, I don't know who I'm gonna get out of 200 characters, and then I only know how to play, like, 10 of them. So it's usually a big clown show, where my wife in her League of Legends account, she only has characters that she loves to play. So no matter what the
right.
random outcome is, she ends up with the character that she knows how to play and likes to play. Um, but yeah, you're right. With enough money, you could unlock all of the characters, or you can just play to unlock them all. But I was playing League of Legends back when it was new, so I got ahead of it. So it was easy for me to get them all. I didn't spend any
Mm.
real money on characters.
No, that's fair. I also the other game that I usually point at is Path of Exile as a free to play, which is a New Zealand company, I believe, with drop bears in it. So I've got to keep a special place in my heart for that game. They put drop bears in their game. Um, I think that they basically have only cosmetic stuff. You can only the only things you can't buy weapons, you can't buy armor. It's kind of like a Diablo kind of game,
Yep.
but you can't buy anything except for cosmetic skins that make you look cool or leave flaming footprints and stuff like that. And then that allows them to run competitions because the competitions, to see who can progress the furthest, that there's rewards for them, and but no one's got an advantage because it's all cosmetic. You can't pay to get an edge in that game, except for maybe more storage. I think is one thing that they do, but that's it's so incidental to whether you succeed because in the competition you're wipe clear and you start from the start, so it's very very
Right.
incidental. But yeah, I think that's a couple of companies that are really doing it right, but
I think Pal World and Helldivers have proven that there's a way to monetize, without being hyper predatory and still be
yes,
hugely successful, right? Both Pal World and
yeah,
Helldivers 2 came out with $50 price tags for starters,
mhm,
which is
mhm.
very not the norm these days.
Reasonable. Yeah,
Yeah,
reasonable,
very
yeah.
reasonable. Almost almost cheap enough that you don't care if the game's gonna be good or bad. It's worth throwing at it just to have a look. Um,
Mm.
and then if you go look at their back end, it's I mean, in the case of Pal World, I don't think I saw any window to monetization in the back end. There was no like, give me
Nope.
$4 and we'll give you a skin or something. I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it will
I'm
be.
sure
Yeah,
that's coming.
yeah.
And then Helldivers too, it's like, here's everything. You can unlock it by playing or you can unlock it by paying. Um, it is kind of a little bit of a you can pay for better weapons. But it's not a competitive game, so it's like that doesn't really matter anymore. It's only when it's a competitive game when like paying to
Yes, yeah,
win is a real problem.
sure, sure.
Oh, Planetside,
Um,
yeah, that was a great game too.
yeah, that had a very, very novel approach to pitting people against one another. And you sort of said, value for these games. I do have to say, that my time in games, some of the clans and groups that I've seen run in gaming are run better than some of the small businesses that I've seen. I
Right?
have I honestly have seen people with the most incredible leadership skills take control of these, clans and guilds and run them incredibly well. And for their real job, they're a painter or an electrician or something, and it's
Yeah.
just but so do you think there's a lot of transferable skills from these games, or do you think like I know that you don't think they're a waste of time, but do you think that people spend too much time on games?
Is there more than just entertainment value out of them at the end of the day?
Sure, sure.
Um, yeah, for sure. Uh, I mean, a game I like to use the example of a game with a good story for beginners. If you've got a game with a fantastic story to tell, um, right there, as far as I'm concerned, you're in the same ballpark as just reading a good book. And I don't think anybody
Mm,
would argue that there's no value in reading a good book, even if it's a fictional story. Um, but even in the game, you're probably going to have more choices. You're going to get to make some decisions, and those decisions are going to have um, some kind of outcome. Whether that outcome will be a positive or a negative, a lesson might be learned. It may not be a life lesson, um, but you still get to experience a good story and maybe get an insight you haven't seen before. Um, as far as physical, like the I think I've heard some people talk about like hand-eye coordination is real good for this, that, and the other thing. There's definitely got to be some value there, although
why does
I
it
think the
have to be?
industries where that's valuable are still limited, but, um, I've heard stories of the military purposely hiring gamers to fly their drones, for
Well,
example.
that makes sense, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I would sort of think that flying drones is a net positive really, but, like, I can see those skills being transferable. Are there games where you have regretted putting time into?
Um, no, because if you're not liking it, you're usually gonna stop playing it pretty quickly. I
I
don't
don't
think I've
know.
ever played all the way through a game and I was like, "I wish I didn't even bother."
I think well, not that I didn't bother, but, I think for me, it's stuff like, I think I regret putting so much time into WoW. I did my time in WoW, World of Warcraft, which is a online, massively multiplayer game. It's probably the most famous massively multiplayer, game. And I think I regret putting so much time into that because it really was, I think there is a risk of when you're playing a game that becomes the grind that you're doing stuff and you're not really enjoying it, and you're just doing it because it's sort of habitual quests and things, repetitive things that you are doing. What's your thoughts on that?
That sounds more like regretting an addiction, perhaps.
Sure.
Um, so I mean, so I played World of Warcraft. I was there on day one, right in 2004, like
Hmm.
everyone else.
Hmm.
I can tell you the attitude before World of Warcraft came out from all of my friends was, I will never, ever play a game that I have to pay to play every month. Like,
Mhm.
that was not anything they were ever going to do. As far as they were concerned, that was never a possibility.
Right,
Then World
right.
of Warcraft gets announced. Suddenly, it's like, oh wait, no, I would pay to play that every month.
Mhm.
And back then, we were paying $30 a month Canadian for that.
Mm.
So we, on top of paying 60 for the game to buy it, right? So that game came out and we played it and we played it. I can't say I regret any of my time in it. But what happened to my circle of friends when that first expansion got announced that was coming out, we all pretty much quit.
Mhm.
Because all the effort and time that we had put into the game so far was kind of being said to be meaningless now. There was all new there was a new level cap, there was all new gear. We weren't the strongest, best players anymore, and we were just like, we felt like all the work up to this point, do we really wanna go through it again? No, which
Mm.
is kinda weird because that's kind of the heart of that
Yeah.
game. You would think finally more gameplay, but no, that's not what our attitude was. We were like, "Nope, we're out of here." Um, yeah, so my experience with World of Warcraft ended with the first expansion, which was
Right, right.
Burning Crusades or something? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so. Then there was Wrath of the Lich King and a whole bunch of
Yeah.
others. I stayed with it for a little bit, but I just feel like there's a few things that they sort of prey on, which is that sort of grinding mentality and sort of a fear of missing out kind of thing that they say, hey, if
Yeah,
you
but at the
don't,
same time, those people that are running those guilds and those people that have been playing those games together for so long,
mm,
that's their bowling night. That's what it is. That's the
yeah,
same thing as in the '70s and '80s when mom and dad went out for bowling night and you got left home with the babysitter. Now it's the bowling night now is World of Warcraft and Call of Duty and whatever. People
mm.
have their nights. Even you and I, Mark, have our regular Friday where it's like we hook
Oh,
up
that's
on
true.
Friday, right? We have a scheduled time,
Yeah.
and we play our game. I think a lot of those people that are still playing World of Warcraft today have scheduled slots for time. Um,
Mm,
I'm sure there's a lot of people that are daily logging in and every free
mm.
moment is still logging in. I think those people perhaps need a little bit of assistance of like, maybe you should take a break and go do something else for a while. But I don't think
Yeah, and
there's
there,
any
there's a
harm.
well, there's a big thing about video game addiction, and I think that anything can be addictive. That if it's affecting your life to the point where your work is suffering or your relationships are suffering because of sort of playing games over spending
Or even
time
your
with your
health
loved
in this
ones.
case too, like, it can affect
Right,
your
right,
health.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then it's definitely a problem. But um, I don't I see really anything as addictive, sort of any behavior that's causing that is addictive. So
Yeah.
I'm not particularly worried about games for that. Um,
Yeah, no, I don't think
but
there's any huge time waste. I can't say that I've spent too much time playing a game that I regret putting any time in, especially given the industry that I'm in now, right? In fact, I'm
right.
actively seeking out to try to play more games,
Mhm,
because I haven't played every game, and I'll have a student come in, and they'll be talking about, Call of Duty, a game I have never played, and it's like, you know what? I should probably get up to date with what that game's all about. I mean,
mhm,
I on the surface, obviously, I understand what it's about, but I haven't actually really played it, not since 20 years anyways.
mhm. Um, let's talk about debate and sort of where
Yeah.
you fall on the debater. Um, So you're doing the wavelength, and what's that aim towards? Like, where do you hope that it gets into the future? What are you aiming for that program to be? Because you're doing
Um,
Deep Six, which is really that's really cool. That's why I was really delighted to come on to sort of share it at very short notice, I might add. Um, that was actually really cool. But you're sort of running. Well, first, take us through what Deep Six is. Like what
so
you're doing.
well, Deep Six actually is a great little flagship into what's the real point of the channel. Um, it's a channel by some fans for the fans. So the idea being is, in the case of Deep Six, that we can put someone in the pilot seat um, that the community admires or they enjoy or that they like to
Mhm.
watch, and then we could have a little bit more of a lighter hearted discussion because we deal with shorts. It's not a one-on-one debate situation anymore. Like, it's not such a hostile environment. So we can have a casual hangout discussion with them, explore some different topics perhaps so we don't hear those voices that we like to hear talk about too often, and see what their point of views are on those. Um, and yeah, it's a way for us to platform the content creators. Uh, we don't necessarily see ourselves as a content creator, even though we're creating content. I get it. Um, but every time we get a guest to come on, we're just fan people that are just honored to be on the stage with these people's channels who we go out and watch all the time. And the gimmick with Deep Six, and it's a gimmick, I know it doesn't matter, is I set up 6 YouTube shorts. Well, now I can do TikTok, but we set up 6 video shorts, um, one of which is supposed to be a light-hearted, not of important topic whatsoever, the topic cleanser, as I call it, that we end the episode on. And the other 5, we all take turns choosing which one we want to watch next. Again, it doesn't matter. We're gonna watch them all anyways. But
Right, right,
it's a fun little gimmick. And maybe I'll expand on the gimmick later. Maybe we'll add prizes under there when I click it or something. I don't know. But
yeah.
it's just a little gimmick and a fun little neat presentation to try to
Mhm.
get um, people like yourself just in and out and have a casual
Yeah.
hangout slash discussion, right? Like we had Aaron Raw on our very first
Mhm.
episode of Deep Six on Wavelength, and that was great. It was awesome. He was laughing, he was cracking jokes, things he doesn't normally do when he's
Yeah.
debating somebody, right? Because he's trying to put on some kind of persona, and also the topic is usually a heavy topic, so it's not a laughing matter, right? But when you've got him on Deep Six, things can be a little bit more chill, a little bit more casual. I mean, Aaron
Yeah,
Ross still
okay.
goes off, right? And that's what
Mhm.
we love, and that's fine. But then he tells a little joke afterwards, or we have a chuckle and a laugh, and it's great. So
So,
it's just a
yeah,
channel for us fans to be like, come over and play with us for a while.
is it kind of like because what I sort of see is like comparing it to is kind of like Hot Ones or something, right? You just have somebody on, just sort of go through something that is not even related to what their ordinary presence online or on air is, and
Actually,
sort of have more of a casual
that's a
conversation.
fantastic way to compare it, and I'm gonna use that comparison from now on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Well,
exactly that.
the idea of Hot Ones is that the pain makes people sort of open up kind of thing, and sort of not not be more authentic, I guess. And so I think you're doing the same thing, but I don't know. They're on a sort of have multiple shows on their channel kind of thing. So I'm wondering, are you planning to have more shows that deal with different stuff, or do different things on Wavelength, or is it just
Yeah, I
Deep
wanna
Six that
do more of this show that we've done a couple of at this point called Frequency,
right?
um, which is supposed to be my little, like, my own little, Bill Maher style panel, where I
Okay.
get people to come on, that are relatively knowledgeable about the topic, or at the very least have an opinion on it, right? Like, I don't
Mhm.
want anybody to come on and be like, "Yeah, I don't care about this topic," and then just sit there, right? I wanna have a little more purposeful faces on the panel. I don't just wanna open it up and be like, "Here's my StreamYard link in the chat. Come join if you wanna talk about this." Um,
Okay.
where I wanna try to be able to drive that conversation. I wanna be in control of the conversation. Sure, I'll impart my opinion occasionally, my ideas about a topic or
Sure.
whatnot.
Sure.
Um, but
Well, it's
I
your
just
panel.
I
I'd
just
hope so.
what's that?
It's your panel. I would hope so that you
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't wanna be, I wanna be, like, in the middle,
You
right?
want
So,
don't
like,
want to
if
be
one
private.
person's
Yeah.
sharing an
No, I get
opinion
that.
about a topic, another person's got an opposing opinion, I wanna try to ask the questions that the person who is unsure would ask, right? I don't wanna ask the questions of the person who's on a side, if that
Do
makes sense.
you have people that you would never have on Deep Six or never have on your panel?
Um, we wouldn't have anybody on Deep Six that we don't already enjoy or like or subscribe to, and, Deep Six is, like I said, it's our fan, our gush show, our show of, like, "See if we can get this person to come on because 'cause they're awesome." And that's
Mhm.
so yeah, you'll never see someone on Deep Six, um, that myself or my channel mates wouldn't want to purposely see there.
Yeah.
Um, but frequency, yeah, I would put opposing views on there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I would kinda have to, otherwise it would be 4 or 5 people sitting around going, "I agree with everything that was said here, now what?" That wouldn't be much of an episode to watch, would it?
So flat Earth is fine.
Well,
What about more contentious?
for us, flat Earth is a little bit like slumming it, which we're cool with, we enjoy it. The views definitely show that people love they
Right.
love the mudslinging of a flat Earth debate, um, but
Why is
no.
that? Why do people like I get the appeal, but why is it so popular? Like, you're a moderator on Modern Day Debate, and Modern Day Debate has a ridiculous amount of flat Earth debates on it. I don't think we're going to argue about that. It does.
No. And if you go look at the views, they get
Yep.
the most views. You put Witsit on modern day debate, you're gonna get 30, 40,000 views, and it's just like, and you can't stop. If
Is
you're
this
gonna
flat
if you
earthers? Because other flat earthers have been on there and we don't get those numbers. Is this flat earthers or is this sort of, you
well,
know,
that might be more just because Witsit brings his own crowd. Um,
Mhm.
I think one of the reasons why people enjoy watching a flat Earth debate is because it's so blatantly obvious who's right, and being on the side who when you're if you had to go to, a sporting event and you were playing a sport and you knew you were gonna win, it'd be a pretty good time. Like, an easy slam dunk is still fun.
I don't go to a lot of sporting. I'm not really into the sports ball. I hate to break it to you, Justin, but
I
that's
know, but
okay. I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
yeah,
Um,
it's kind of it's kind of like having that power up that just never ends. It's like, it's indestructible. You're not gonna defeat Globe Earth. It's done.
yeah.
That argument was done centuries ago. We're
Mhm.
just here because we can't believe anyone's arguing that, and we're already on the side that's right. We don't even it's not even I don't even know how to say it without it being so arrogant, but, like, they're
Well,
wrong, we're
here's
right.
the thing. I would say it's not even debatable, but
Yeah,
obviously it is,
it obviously is.
right? So is there a risk of when we have these topics that aren't even debatable and we debate them, is there a risk that we undermine the position of, what has been settled science?
Are you kinda getting into the idea of, um, like, platforming certain people and even having these discussions?
Um,
Um,
I guess so. I don't know where I was going with this. Just, because there's a lot of people that think that flat Earth is becoming more and more and more popular, kind of thing, and I'm not sure that's the case. But if you look on a channel like Modern Day Debate, or there's channels that work on simply flat earthers, like Fight the Flat Earth,
yeah,
and Matters Now is doing a lot of flat Earth stuff. Like,
yeah,
these channels,
MC2.
right? You could be thinking, oh, well, it's huge, kind of thing. Look at the numbers they're getting. I guess I worry that, um, I think there's some people in science who don't debate with with, like, for instance, Richard Dawkins just said, no, I'm not going to debate creationists anymore about evolution because, it's beneath him. And I think that maybe that might have been the right call, but I don't know. I don't know. It's sort of
Well,
like,
let me put it like this: if it wasn't for all of the flat Earth debates that I've seen, I wouldn't know about as much about the globe Earth that I know now,
well, that's true, actually. Yeah, I don't
right?
think I would have investigated as much. Sure.
Like, I was never confused about what shape the planet was. Like, I mean, come on. But I didn't know as much about space or uh, gravity or the planet as I do now, from watching flat Earth debates. Because the flat earthers come in all spouting whatever they're spouting, and then
Yeah.
the globe side will make the argument and explain it, and it's usually always so well explained. You,
Mm.
for example, like, it's a real treat to be here with you now, as I was just a Mark Reid fanboy a year ago. You know, like, I was truly just like, when I saw Mark Reid on Modern Day Debate, I was like, gonna watch a Mark Reid debate today. Like, it was
Oh,
great. Um,
that's weird. That's weird to me. That's
Sorry,
very
man, it's
strange
the
to me.
truth.
No,
It's
I
the
know,
truth.
I know. We've discussed this before.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, but a couple of years ago or a year ago, I was just, wandering around in chats and over at Amy Newman's, and just sort of accepted debates randomly, like it wasn't something that I'd planned out or done anything to do. And I'm not doing anything, like, I really didn't. I didn't try to be in this position at all. I certainly didn't. So that's just strange to me, why you'd be following me. But I appreciate it. I do.
Well, it's
It's strange.
because when you were in debates, you communicated your arguments very, very well, right? Like,
Mhm.
I was able to learn from you. You didn't just If I was in a debate with somebody, my best argument would be, "Nuh-uh." Like, that would be me debating. Like,
Yeah.
"No," right? You take the time to explain why what they said is wrong and what the actual answer is. And if it's something really fascinating, I'll go look it up a little bit further myself, right? Um, yeah, so there's some education to
Hey,
be
hey,
gained from it.
this interview's about you, sir. You
Right.
stop trying to get this onto me. This isn't about me.
I'm
How
just saying
dare
that
you?
there is education to be gained from a flat Earth debate, even though I like to call it, like, we're just slumming, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Abs
yeah.
and
Now,
let
whether or
and
not the flat Earth debaters are all honest, that's another question, though.
That's a good question. Are they?
I prefer a flat earther who actually believes what he's talking about than one who's out there just having a game to himself on the side going, "These guys actually think I believe this stuff," you know? Like,
I
I don't know.
think it depends on the flat earther, in my opinion. Like Nathan Luhman, who's a nice young guy, I think he's genuinely serious and earnest. Like I'd hate to think that it's all a big, he really doesn't seem like he's running a scam. Although there are definitely others that you're like, well, I don't know about this person. This person seems like they don't actually, they feel like they're running a scam to me.
I mean, are all flat earthers religious?
The overlap is incredibly, like, on a Venn diagram for those two things. The flat earthers would be almost in the creationist circle. I think there's a couple of fringe ones, but generally it is only religious people.
Yeah, so then I would say that, as hard as it is to say it, I would have to guess or assume at the very least that they're honest then. They actually believe the stuff that they're arguing for despite all of the evidence, and I also do believe that these same people, if we were to throw them in a rocket and launch them into space tomorrow, they'd still come back to Earth and go, "It was all fake." Like,
Well, they are having that thing where they're sending a flat Earth representative and globe
yeah,
Earth
the final
representative.
experiment.
The final experiment. Yeah, I forgot the name of it.
Yeah.
which is interesting. I would like to see what they say when they come back. Have they chosen the flat earther? Is it going to be Whitsitt? Because he's already said
I,
that he won't believe it.
um, he already said he wouldn't believe it, and he also said that if it could be proven true, that he would have to concede that that's a real problem for flat Earth. So
Right.
he
But he
basically
was
is saying, "I'm not going to believe it, but now I'm going to have to work 10 times as hard to
right.
convince people that the Earth isn't round."
Yeah. Yeah. Which
Um,
is a real problematic way of doing something. It's sort of like, oh well, if this could be shown, I'm not going to believe it, but I'm going to have to work even harder to reinforce my beliefs. I
yeah.
don't, you know.
And if flat Earth is ever truly defeated, and if we never see another flat Earth debate again, there'll just be another thing up to the plate that will be like absolutely absurd that we'll have to debate. Mud floods, giants, even modern day debate has attempted the occasional dragon debate just to see where that goes. It's strange.
Sorry, who has?
Modern day debate had a dragon debate.
Um, yes, yeah, absolutely. I
Yes.
believe that was Howard Stirrup, who I'm not sure is capable of rational thought. I didn't I do the dragon debate? I can't even remember. Um,
No, I don't think so. You may have had a dragon debate. Um,
possibly.
in any case, I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
saying
wasn't
there's
it?
there's always another silly debate to be had. So,
No, mine was did dinosaurs exist, and he said that they were dragons, so that's tied into it.
yeah.
Yeah. Are there any topics that you think shouldn't not be debated? Let's get contentious.
Well, no, I don't think so. I can't
No.
think of anything off the top of my head, but it depends on the spirit of which they want to debate it. Like, if the debate is honest and they actually have this opinion, good or bad, I think it's worth hearing out. Um, if nothing else, just you put them in front of somebody who can um, properly defend the point of view, and then you can use that as a point of education, right? I mean, um,
So would you think that sort of Holocaust denial should be debated?
not sure that I no, you know what? I don't know. Is it even up to me to make that decision? If the person who's
Well,
denying that the
no.
Holocaust happened came honestly with what they considered to be evidence, and they were willing to discuss or debate the topic sensitively, right? Because that debate could bring a lot of like other baggage with it.
Well, I would have to, right?
Yeah. So
It absolutely have
if
to.
if they were willing for the sake of having that debate, try to be as sensitive as possible about it, sure. But that would be a minefield, man.
Well, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and not only that, I think that um there's probably some topics that I wouldn't I don't think maybe should be debated because of the effect it has on the topic sort of. So some of the protected classes out there, like for instance Jewish people. um I'm not sure a debate is in the best interest for society, that we should open ourselves to saying, hey, these two positions are acceptable to put up against one another.
Well, does a debate necessarily need a stage though? Like
Well, yeah, but
again,
I am talking
it
about
can
a platform debate. I'm not talking about just
yeah,
two
I
people
probably wouldn't
talking at
moderate
each other.
that debate regardless.
Mm.
If we wanna ask that question, um, is the debate worth having? Again, I'm not even sure I'd wanna listen to that debate. Also, it depends on how much, I guess, you know about it and stuff too, right? Like, I'm aware of the Holocaust. I know what happened. I know how horrible it was. it leaves a bad taste in my mouth to say the word. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it would be a tough one to get behind actually debating it. Could it be debated? Maybe. Like I said, if the person really has some like true blue evidence and they're gonna, they want to discuss it as sensitively and calmly as possible, perhaps not with a platform either. Okay, go ahead, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
It's
yeah, I think that, I mean, recently I've been reviewing a debate that should the US bomb Iran kind of thing. So obviously this is a conversation that is being had by, I might add, Alan Dershowitz and who's pretty famous as lawyers go, probably the most famous lawyer of our modern age, and Glenn Greenwald, who is a pretty famous journalist. So, you know, what I'm wondering, are there things that we should not platform to give credence to? Like when you say, hey, we go into those flat earth debates knowing that the earth is a globe, like we know that, and it's
yeah.
sort of more there for the sport. But should we be platforming these other topics that could possibly be more controversial, that could possibly lead to people thinking, well, there is something in that?
Isn't it a little bit kind of like picking your battle a little bit too, though? I mean,
What do you mean?
there's some people, individuals, you definitely
Mm,
should just be like, I don't want anything to do with that one person.
sure.
Um, but if a debate is going to take place between two honest people, um,
Mm,
the debate isn't about them convincing each other. It's about them trying to present their argument to an audience. Now, if
mm,
one side of that debate is a very, very, very hateful side of that debate, then
right.
yeah, you probably might want to just avoid that. I mean, hatred is not debatable. Hatred's bad. Okay.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Um,
It's just
I don't
a
know.
lot of the time.
It's tough. It's hard
Yeah.
to say what's right and wrong. Now, on the topic of platforming people, though, I would say that the person who's bringing the bigger audience is the one that's platforming, right? So if you're worried
Sure.
about if you're worried about getting into a debate with somebody who's got a horrible, horrible, horrible position, a horrible
Mm,
idea about something, but they're bringing like 100,000 people to watch it, to your 1,000 people or something, might be worth going there because you might be able. The odds of you educating more people is higher. Like the odds of you making an impact on a larger number of people who were supporting the wrong idea is much, much higher. So
mm.
could be kind of worth it. Like let's like a KKK person. Let's say there was a KKK person with
Right. Just
a
about as bad as it gets.
channel with
Yeah. Yeah.
100,000 subscribers, and Mark Reid was invited to come on their channel and debate, um, you know, equal rights or things of that sort. I would say go, Mark, go, because
Right.
they've got a bigger platform, and hopefully
Mm.
you might be able to educate or open up some eyes, right? Um, Now, if you've got the bigger platform and somebody's like an up and coming hate monger, yeah, maybe you might want to say, you know what? No, I don't want to shed any light on you and your ideas.
Yeah, I kind of do agree. I think that, and at the end of the day, I think that we can't take these people out of society. They're going to be there.
Yeah,
I don't know how we. I would like to think I can get through to somebody that is incredibly entrenched, like incredibly entrenched. However, I don't know that I can do that.
No,
Like
I don't think you'll ever convince the person you're debating. It's
well,
about the
not the
audience and the
person I'm
way.
debating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really more talking about, I'd like to think I could, make some difference to an audience member who's incredibly
I think
entrenched in that mentality.
you and all of the debaters make more of an impact on the audience than you guys think. I would wager that with every flat earth debate, there's another flat earther in that audience who's like, "You know what? This is stupid." And they've just like, even if they don't decide to change their mind, they just decide to stop freaking talking about it. That's still a win. They're just like, "You know what?
Well,
I don't even care anymore."
well, I guess, and sort of one of the problems that I see is the Andrew Wilson issue,
Yeah.
that Matt Dillahunty debated him and then sort of walked out when it was obvious that he was you know not sticking to the subject and really just derailing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then it, Andrew Wilson, I've heard, has gotten huge off of that. He's gotten a lot of attention and done his sort of hateful rants. And he he's literally a fascist. Like he is
Yeah. He markets
literally,
himself as one.
yeah. So that makes me worried. That really does.
Yeah.
That somebody that hateful can sort of
Gain
um,
ground.
gain a lot of ground apparently, and that sort of being this way, being
Yeah, Jim
sort of
Bob is one.
burning.
Titan Arenas just
Sure.
mentioned there too. He's the
Okay.
new recent, like, everyone is talking about Jim Bob right now. And he is,
I had an interaction with him.
yeah. I think he's a great example for what we're talking about here. Because a month ago I'd never heard the name.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Um,
yeah.
so now that I'm aware of him, um, is that a point for Jim Bob or a point for our community?
I don't know. I don't know, but a part of me thinks that these people are doing this because they know that it will bring in subscribers, bring in people, and make them lots of money. Just as
Even if you're
your
just a hate
encounter.
watcher, right?
Right, right, right. It's not important what your message is as long as you are just heard. That will bring in the money, and the easiest way to be heard and get um, your voice out there doesn't is to say the most contentious things and behave in the most reprehensible ways. And part of me wonders how much that is part of it, how much um, they do just sort of create the terrible situations and terrible things that they say just to be for that recognition.
Yeah. Historically speaking, and in my experience, um, people like that are they're gonna fall. They're always gonna fall. They're gonna fail. Um, they might get really huge before that happens, but they're most likely gonna do something, or something's gonna come out, that's gonna cause them to just fail. Was it Darth Dawkins recently? There was like a real life picture was released of him or something, and like he seems to have almost disappeared. Like,
He seems to have accidentally released it himself, to be honest
oh,
with
did
you.
really?
Nobody
Okay,
doxed
well,
him. Yeah, he accidentally showed a picture or something, or turned his his thing off for a second and the camera caught him or something like that. I don't think
yeah.
anyone actually doxed him.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I mean,
But he's another creature entirely. I mean,
yeah.
Dawkins doesn't seem to be fueled by, well, I've got to monetize and
No,
get
because
my
he goes
channel
to other
going.
people's channels all the time, right?
Right, and he doesn't have a channel of his own. Even somebody who's sort of had engaged with him and went, "This guy's terrible." Went, why don't you have your own channel? You would make a fortune, kind of thing. Apparently, he did try to start a YouTube channel because of the stuff he said. He got closed down, and I don't think he can stand the idea of failing. Like,
Right.
I think what drives him is different than what drives a Jim Bob or a Andrew Wilson or somebody like that. He's driven by the need for power over people. I think he, he likes to slam on people, and that gives him a, you know, that's just my opinion. I'm not a psychologist, but I think he just likes to dunk on people and slam on people and, be right. And then he gets a big rush from doing that. I think his motivations are completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. The topic of platforming certain individuals is a tough one, and it's one that has been broached many, many times. And I'm not sure I've settled on what the black and white, right and wrong answer is of it. What I do know is it's the size of the audience that each individual brings matters. Um, so if the person that you're up against has the bigger audience, then it's not you platforming them, it's them platforming you. In which case, I say go, 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 right? Um, but some people you just can't get close to either. Like, I'll bring up Grayson, who recently told me that like Andrew Wilson is not someone he can discuss with because he brings out the worst of Grayson,
Yeah.
right? And anyone here
And
who knows
yeah,
Grayson, he's such a chill, happy person. Who wants to see that angry? Nobody, right?
at least of all him.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, no, I realize that, and I think that that's very mature and self-aware by
mhm.
Grayson. And I really do think that it would be, I feel like what makes me regret and what makes me sad is that Grayson would probably get more of a following if he did just lose his crap at that
Yeah.
guy and sort of get into it. Um, I really don't like the aftermath of that kind of anger. It makes me feel pretty crappy, to be honest with you. I don't feel great, and I imagine he said he feels the same. He didn't like how he was. So I think that that's incredibly prescient and mature of the guy. He just is aware of what he wants and what he doesn't want, which is I admire him for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tough. I would
Would
love
you
to
ever?
see somebody go over to Andrew Wilson's channel and, like, debate him hard and put him in his place for sure. Um,
Well, I think Destiny has. He's had a history with Destiny, and as far as I'm aware, he's never come out well from that exchange.
right. Well, I'll have to check those out, I guess. I haven't seen as much of Destiny as I probably should. Maybe, I don't
Me
know.
neither.
Destiny
Me
seems like he's
neither.
in a weird position. I'm not sure I'm totally, like, in agreeance with everything he thinks,
Well,
which
you
is
don't
probably
have
why
to be.
which is probably
Yeah.
why I haven't seen much of him, but
I do know that he's good at debate, though. He is good at
mhm.
debating. He keeps his calm. The one of the best debates I saw was him against Infrared when Infrared just lost the plot. Um, and the hoops that Destiny went through was good. I don't know much about him, but he really did um, get Infrared just wound up and absolutely controlled him.
Yeah, for me, a good debate, regardless of the topic, is 2 people who, A, they have to be knowledgeable about their, uh, topic.
Mm.
Um, they have to be able to communicate their ideas and their evidence and whatever properly. And if the heat goes up a little bit, I'm cool with that. I like that. I like a little bit of heat. Um, a little bit of energy makes it exciting for everyone, and when it's exciting, then people are listening, and they're more engaged, when both debaters are passionate about the topic. The moment it gets to they start insulting each other,
Yes.
it's not a debate anymore, it's a schoolyard spat. Um,
Yes.
and I don't understand a debater that would demean their opponent either. Like, if you and I were in a debate right now, Mark, and all I did was
Yeah.
comment, on your head, I would
Hmm.
basically be just a dick for just pointing out a physical part of you, has nothing to
Yeah.
do with the topic that we're debating, and now I'm trying to basically make you look smaller so that I feel bigger. Therefore, I would be punching down, and I don't look good either. Right? If you were to debate someone and call them stupid, it's like, do you really want to
Yeah.
debate against someone you think is stupid?
So there's two schools of thought with that. So first off, it's like, well, yeah, that demeans the debate. Oh, and I do have something to go through. I did get it up on screen earlier. Left-handed Jedi did, and sorry to interrupt with this, but Left-handed Jedi
Okay.
did make a give out readerships. So thank you so much, Left-handed Jedi. I'm so sorry. Didn't want to stilt the conversation, but now it's back in my court. Do remind me of what we were talking about as well. Giant Uranus got a readership. Congratulations, Titan. Mark Stoney got a readership. Carol Kinzer got a readership. NetTube user got a readership, and Damian Kosmic got a readership. I've seen Damian pick up tons of them. Something must be broken. But thank you so much, Left-handed Jedi. I really appreciate it. And so, going back to what we were talking about before, and I'll pop that up on the screen while so talking about what we're talking about, there's two schools of thought, and I used to think, oh, this person's horrible, that, how dare they insult me, how dare they use that against me, kind of thing. It's demeaning, it's horrible, and you should be ashamed of yourself. But there's a certain saying in The Art of War, Sun Tzu, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Art of War. It's used a lot in business. It's used a lot, sort of, all over the place, because it basically says that it has a lot of things that can be applied to things outside of war, just interactions in general. Now, one of it says is, if an opponent wants to make a mistake, don't stop them. Right. So my paradigm changed, that if someone wants to make the mistake of ad homing, let them.
Oh, I
Don't
agree with
stop
that
them from
for
doing
sure.
that. Yeah, it's sort of it becomes contentious, because when they're sort of dog whistling and attacking through that kind of thing, that's a lot harder to deal with, because there's genuine harm. But sort of, saying I'm bald, okay. I mean, I had an engagement where someone went Lex Luthor, and it's like, I okay.
Oh, rich playboy? Okay, cool.
Right, it doesn't bother me that much, and really, what's the outcome? What worries me more is when people are dog whistling to their audience to attack certain individuals or certain people in our society, like LGBTQI people, or Jewish people, or doing this dog whistling where um you know when I ordinarily, I would say, hey, if they want to insult, let them. That's a harm where I say, well, don't let them dog whistle to their audience. Don't let them. That's more harm done than my hurt feelings. I guess
Mhm.
that's a bit different. But yeah, I agree with Maya. When they resort to insults, they're out of arguments. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
talking about Jim Bob, I had an interaction with Jim Bob where, I mean, he insults people constantly. He just calls them names and, insults them.
To be
Um,
completely honest, I see his name come up all over the place the last, like, couple of weeks, and I have yet to see one interaction with the guy. I've actually never watched anything where he's been there.
well, I've been debating putting up a room rumble because, oh, thanks so much, Wayne. Take care, buddy. I've been debating putting up a room rumble because, um, somebody came in, and I sort of said to Jim Bob, like, what you do is terrible. You insult people. Not getting angry about it, because I think that that's what he wants. He wants people to get angry and emotional, so then he can say, "Hey, you're just emotional." But sort of, you just insult people, and obviously you don't have a good argument because you insult people. Someone came in and went off at him and swore at him, and I'd said, you insulting me, shows a lot more about you. It says a lot more about you than it does about me.
Agreed.
And he said, well, that means it says a lot more about them too. And it's like, yeah, it does. they're scared. But I didn't get to saying that. It was just like, well, yeah, I guess so. But it's this. Should we be going down to the same level they are?
No,
That I
absolutely not.
wonder. I
No.
wonder. Because it might surprise you. I can insult people like a champ. I really can. I can be very childish and insulting. If you've ever seen me play Elden Ring and die 50 times, you probably are aware of that. But I try not to do that. And so yeah, I guess there's a lot of self-reflection that I'm doing on whether some people do deserve abuse.
Nobody does. Nobody deserves abuse.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
it
that's
and if it's not in
yeah,
your nature to, like, be abusive to somebody, don't try to add it now. You're absolutely right. Anyone who's going to talk down to somebody or demean them or insult them, it says more about who they are than it does about you. And I can promise you from the point of view of the audience, even when it's the person whose side they're on, if they start, like, just flat out insulting somebody and their family and whatever, um, even their supporters are gonna be a little bit kinda like, "Oh, I hope no one's looking." It's not a good look, especially in what's trying to be like a formal debate arena. It's no one should ever stoop to the level of insults in a debate.
um,
Now, if you wanna say that the thing they said was stupid or the argument was stupid and attack the argument, the thing that we've heard 100 times before, well,
mm,
that's a little different. But, if you're being actively assaulted, I think, like you said, Maya's got it right. If they're insulting you on the most basic level, like the color of your shirt or something, they've lost it. They're done. You can
yeah,
just
yeah.
you can just be like, "We can stop now."
Mm. Yeah, no, and I sorry, I'm completely missed the time, Justin. I do apologize, mate. We should have been into the Q&A already. Usually I prepare these for an hour and a half, and it's actually 1 hour 50 that we've gone for. So I really do
No problem,
apologize,
man.
mate. Yeah, sorry, got up talking. I
That
do like to
felt
talk.
like 10 minutes.
Um, well, there hasn't been that many questions, which is fine.
Yep.
Totally get it. Um, so the first one from Bubba Sweat. Thank you, Bubba Sweat. Really appreciate you sending that in. Justin, if you blur the line between a console and a computer, then will consoles ever really go away?
Yeah, because the line is gonna you can call it whatever you want, but the line between refrigerator and computer is blurring now. So it's only a matter of time before, we're just gonna buy TVs that have bigger computers inside of them, and we'll subscribe to our Microsoft or our Epic accounts, and it'll just be there through the TV, through the internet. Or it might at the very most be like in the form of a dongle, like a Google dongle that we see, or those Fire Sticks. It's all going to come down to being just one computer, one way, shape, or form. What I'm saying, as far as the whole consoles being weeded out, is that Microsoft and Sony will eventually stop putting money in developing consoles because it just won't make sense anymore.
So
Um,
how are you defining a console versus a personal computer?
well, right now, the big difference between consoles and computers is that the games are designed for consoles to maximize efficiency. So they get
Mm,
given development kits. Those developers go and they make their game to run as best, and they can tweak and they can really scrutinize the performance of a game on a console because they know that everyone is on equal hardware, right? There's also an argument there about being on equal hardware when it comes to competitive games, but that's not really what we're talking about here. So there's an advantage there, but eventually the hardware is going to just get so good that the consoles won't matter. Like our smart devices are only a few generations away from being as good as the computer some of you are using now. So it's only a matter of time before it all kinds of comes. I made the same claim 20 years ago to a former employer when I told him that pretty soon no one's going to bother with home phones and cable packages because everyone will
Right.
just realize that paying $20 a month for your home phone to get nothing but like people trying to sell you stuff at supper time. They're just going to be like, I already got a cell phone. Why don't I just use a cell
Yeah.
phone? And he didn't believe me. But he also used to tell me that Facebook was just a fad. So, you know what kind of position he was coming from. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, here we
Well,
are in an age of Netflix, and the only person I know with a cable package is my mom.
I mean, people have made some, sort of random predictions, though. Like, I think Bill Gates once said there was, possibly a market for, personal computers for 10,000 people or something. And it's sort of, yeah.
Yeah,
The next question is from Robin Webster. Justin, how many immigrants can you house if the fascists win this election?
all of them
All of them.
until
There
November,
you
and then
go.
it's just too cold. You'll have to go home.
Isn't the election in November?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Okay. So that's none. That's none. It's too cold for
Yeah,
people.
we'll figure it out. It's Canada. You know how many hockey rinks we have here? We'll find you some space.
Okay, there you go. There you go. As long as you're willing to sleep on ice, you're welcome in Canada, apparently. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, the ice
which
can come
I'm
out.
not willing to do. Look, Robin, go to Australia instead. It's a lot warmer there. Seriously,
Yeah, and everything wants
sometimes
you dead.
too warm. Well, I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't. Although we've got our own sort of fascist to worry about at the moment, so that's a
Yeah,
whole other
actually, Canada, we've got our own guy on the rise too right now as well.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation. I won't go
Yeah.
down that one, but that's a whole nother conversation why that's happening.
Canada has been
And
offering affirming care for LGBTQ people for a long time
good.
as
Yeah.
part of their health system, and this guy got Alberta to reverse that. So now it's like I think Alberta no longer provides that stuff, and it's like, oh my god,
Oh,
you're
that's
taking us
terrible.
backwards, man.
Well, apparently this always happens with progress. We go forwards, and then sort of it reverts back, and then we go forwards, and it reverts back.
Yeah, two
It
steps
it
forward,
it
one step back.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got to stick to demonstrable evidence of the good these things do. But what worries me is that people aren't listening to doctors and psychologists and professionals. They're listening to anyway. That's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. I just listen to the experts on the subject, please. Okay, and the next question is actually for me. And Jeff asks, I recently saw your debate with Mr. Batman. Have you debated with other pre-suppers? Yes, I have, biblically. And if you know that reference, you'll understand what I'm talking about. There is somebody called what's his name? I've Ultimated Judeo-Christian is his name now. At the time, his name was um biblically something, biblically ultimate Judaic. I don't remember his name at the time, but it was the worst precept debate ever, and it was pain. It was absolute pain. Yeah, total pain. And if you can work out whether he was serious or trolling, you're a better person than I am, because if you're familiar with Poe's law, do you know what Poe's law is, Justin?
No.
So Poe's law is there is no extremer parody that you can make of creationists or fundamentalists that can't be mistaken for the real thing. They're indistinguishable. Like the most crazy parody could be someone being genuine, and vice versa.
Okay.
Right. So really, what Poe's law means that is that at a certain level, crazy parody of something and somebody just believing this stuff are indistinguishable.
Right.
Like if somebody says, we know the Earth is flat because of, dragons told me in my dreams or something. You honestly don't know whether that is parody or whether they're serious, because the serious stuff that we've
Everything
seen.
said was ridiculous. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. So yeah. So yeah, and so that's about it. We didn't get many questions, but a lot of it was gaming, and it's sort of, gaming is near and dear to my heart. I really love the games that I play. I think it's also interesting that animals that are more intelligent are the ones that play. And whether that's, I'm not just sort of saying chimpanzees play video games. I'm just saying that play
They
seems to
need
be
games
an
too. Yeah.
important part. Well, yeah, it's some sort of games like sport or darts in the pub. Well, we need to play in some way to be human. And all intelligent animals need to. Elephants do, dolphins do, dogs do. Like all of the more intelligent animals have play. Octopuses do. It seems to be a real valuable part. So don't judge me for just liking my games, because yeah.
Well, and a lot of the animal play is also for learning too, right? Like dogs
Mhm.
play with their mouths, and that helps them to gauge how hard they can bite before they're going to cause damage, right? So when
Right.
they're puppies and they're playing with their brothers and sisters and they're chewing on each other and their sister yelps, they know, oops, that was too much, right? And that kind of all of that kind of play in the wild from all kinds of animals is important.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. But I think I'll call it there. So Justin, what you got coming up? What have you got going on? What's going down?
On Wednesday, I am moderating modern day debate. Did the moon landing happen? Um, I believe it's on Wednesday, 8 o'clock. I'm
Mhm.
also, because I've taken the whole week off, moderating a debate on Friday as well.
Oh, what's
Not
that one?
sure what the topic of that one is, but I think it's Nadir again. I
Oh,
think
okay.
Nadir's back. I think it's going to be I think it's, is Christianity or Islam scientific?
Oh,
So,
again?
that should be weird, 'cause
Ah,
it sounds to me like we've got a Christian versus Nadir to debate their
well,
own
at least
books and the scientific
look,
validity of
at
them.
least at least Nadir found the people he want, like, because he didn't want to debate atheists. He wants to debate Christians on the scientific validity of the Bible. So, um, I just
Um,
yeah. So,
the perpetual
I
presenta the perpetual PowerPoint presentations that normally come with Nadir, we'll be trying, that's for sure. He
okay.
always
Well,
has a
you can
friggin'
handle it.
slide he wants to show, but I guess we'll see. And then Friday on Wavelength,
Mm.
um, we've got, um, Seth Andrews. Seth Andrews?
Seth Andrews, fantastic. Yes,
Yeah.
Seth
Um,
Andrews.
so that's gonna be exciting.
Mm.
Did I get the last name right?
I believe you just did one with Maya. Is it Deep Six?
Yeah, so we did a Deep Six
Okay.
episode, last Saturday with Maya Atkinson, and she brought that weasel guy with her. So that was
Her,
cool.
her pet weasel.
Her pet
Nice.
weasel came along. Um, we were gonna do an episode of Wavelength, um, on voting and how your vote works,
Mhm.
and different voting methods, right? Because like, right now, a lot of the different countries, like America runs on an electoral college system, how
Yeah.
your vote works there and what other ways would be good ways to vote, right? Like how to
Mhm.
count and tally votes. But I shelved that for now. Just,
Okay.
life gets busy. I'm trying to sell my home. I'm trying to move. I'm trying to, I wanna build a
A lot going
studio
on.
somewhere.
Well, something interesting for that might be to, sort of tell people that you can direct them to how to enroll, how to, because I think there's a lot of hoops you've got to jump through over there, and I don't even understand it. I don't know. Um, here it's just you're enrolled to vote when you hit 18. You just, you know, involved to vote.
But there's different ways to vote too, right? Like or not different ways to vote, I mean, but different ways that a person can hold an election. For example, there's the traditional popular vote, right? Everyone votes, you count the votes, and whoever gets the most votes wins. But there's ways to there's ways to kind of hack that vote as well. As a politician, there's ways to manipulate the voters so that you can win. For example, you could throw your support behind a guy who's in third place as far as the polls are going, and that could cause voters to be drawn away from the guy who's neck and neck with you, and therefore, elevating you to the lead position. Then there's the ranked voting is another one. Then there's a star system voting. So I've been researching this for this episode that we postponed, but there's a star voting system as well that I've seen. There's a bunch of different ways you can vote, all of which seem very intriguing, and all of them have their weaknesses as well, though. Like they're not all foolproof.
Weaknesses and strengths. Yeah, I think the electoral college sucks though. Without going into further detail, it's a terrible system. But but get out and vote. Your voice definitely does count. Even by yourself, maybe not. But if you and a whole bunch of other people want to change things, look, there's a reason why people who do business, people who own properties, old people vote. It's because it does actually make a difference. There's a reason why churches and the NRA have huge voter bases, because they turn up, and that's why they have
even
so
just
much power.
Left-Handed Jedi and Bubba Sweet, they're both talking about the ranked choice should be more popular and stuff. And I can tell you from the research that I've been doing so far, actually, those are one of the easiest ones to fool and to trick, as like to hack, as I say. I would recommend looking at star ranks voting or ranked star voting. I think that one's probably even better. It's kind of a combination of ranked choice, but everyone's familiar with ranked choice, so they always like say that would be a good one. But there's other methods out there. In any case, sorry, Mark, wrap it up, buddy.
No, all good. No, I was, I wanted you to be able to sort of, say what you're doing. But I've got tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Anderson. I sort of stacked it up this week because we sort of were out of communication last week. My fault completely. And sort of missed when it was supposed to be. So I've got a pretty full week this week. But that's okay. It's good. It'll keep me out of trouble. I'm also running a gaming channel with some Canadian guy who's a laugh and a hoot. That is you. Yep. And so I will provide a link to that. And we're at the moment playing Baldur's Gate 3, which is an amazing game. So thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you coming here. And don't forget, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and have a fantastic day.
And subscribe. Mark's almost 2,000.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, we're so close to 2,000. Look, everybody, if you just all get on your altar, no, I'm joking. Like we're so close to 2,000. We can, if we hit 2,000, I feel like that's a landmark that I definitely will have a party for.
I think you're going to wake up at 2,000 tomorrow. That's what I think is going to happen.
Look, it may happen, it may not. That'd be fantastic. But I will have a celebration, and I think that I've got to reach out more to people like Matt Delahunty and Seth Andrews and people like that to sort of. I'm very nervous about doing so. I feel like I'm wasting their time, but I have questions that maybe I could really enjoy having a conversation with them about. So, I will try to do that. But it's very intimidating going, well, I'm going to reach out to, Seth Andrews. I don't know how you do it. It's incredible.
But, I don't do it. Yeah. It's not all me.
Okay.
I have a team that works real hard. Very, very, very small, specific team.
Okay. Well, fantastic.
That does all of this, the good stuff.
Well, I'm told. Then that's fair. That's fair. Leave it to the experts. Absolutely. But do take care, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. Justin, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your insights into, gaming, debate, just a whole bunch of subjects that we've covered. I really appreciate it. Definitely given me some food for thought, which is always what I'm after. Like I said, I do this so I can hear ideas and think about them, which is a cruel and vicious addiction. But thank you so much, Justin. I hope
It
you've
was a
enjoyed
pleasure and
yourself.
an honor. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, and do take care, everybody.